Hi, I'm Ingrid, and I'm here with
Coco.
And we're from the Santa Barbara Middle School Team Press here with
Sophie Robinson.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here today. Okay, so we're going to ask you a few questions.
Sounds good.
Okay. Can you tell us about what you did before you started making movies?
Sure. I was a grassroots climate change organizer in Massachusetts, and I coordinated a group of about 10 groups across the state that were all volunteer-led, and we were all working on climate change issues and had a statewide network.
Cool. Awesome.
So we also read that you were previously a science teacher for kids our age. What is one of the most important lessons you taught them?
Oh man, you guys did some good research to go that deep. Yeah, so I taught climate change to middle school age for summer. I guess the most important thing I could teach is just to really understand the science and to go for your dreams and to whatever field you're going to go in, to kind of take a climate angle and think through how can I make an impact with what I want to do in the world, and whatever you're interested in, how can that make an impact in the world?
Right. Awesome.
Okay. How did you become involved with PF Pictures?
So when I was an organizer, I saw the impact that their previous films had on organizing, because they produced 2 climate change films that were extremely influential. Do the Math was in 2012, and Disruption was in the lead up to the People's Climate March in 2014. And as an organizer, I saw how many more people were excited to get in the streets and to take charge once they saw film. So I said to myself, I have to quit what I'm doing, even though I was doing great work, but I wanted to quit what I was doing and work with them instead. So I quit, and then I found them, and then we started collaborating on this film.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. What was the most valuable thing you learned while shooting your film?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think, before getting into this, I knew that resource conflict was going to be a big part of the 21st century. But I didn't really understand the complexity of it, and I didn't understand how climate change interacted with other variables like poor governance, infrastructure, religious tensions, political tensions. So that was a nuance that was a little bit new to me, and really getting into that. And then the military perspective was totally new. I had no idea how the military thought about climate change, and that was really interesting.
What can we as teens do to prevent and help stop climate change?
You can do a lot of things. What I was mentioning earlier about, pursuing your passions and making sure that fits in with a climate or social justice theme. Getting involved, and I think young people in particular have a really strong voice when it comes to climate, because it's your future. You guys are going to be the ones that have to deal with this problem more so than older generations, and so you come at it with this really strong moral background that other older people don't have.
Yeah.
And so I think talking to politicians, even from a young age, even though maybe you can't vote, to say hey, this is my future. You need to be making the right decisions for my future, because it's important to think about now. And then also talking to your parents and other older folks who maybe do have more influence on that higher level, to influence them to take action and to demand, a future that would be good for you guys as well.
So a lot of people suggest that the Syrian civil war was caused by politics, not by science. How would you explain the connection between politics and science in this particular situation?
Yeah, so the Syrian civil war is a really interesting case study of the interaction of all of these things. So from 2006 to 2010, there were extreme droughts in Syria that were pretty unprecedented, and researchers have shown that those 2 to 3 times more likely because of climate change. So those droughts were extreme, and farming families can survive with an extreme drought for 1 year, maybe 2 years. You have seeds, you have money saved, but 3 or 4 years you really can't sustain yourself. And so what happened was farmers really, needed to find some other way of supporting their families. And so they couldn't farm anymore. So they went to cities to look for work. And so the story that we hear a lot is that the Assad regime, there's poor governance, it couldn't provide for their people, which is absolutely true. And that intersected with this mass migration of people looking for work. And so when they needed work and there wasn't work, and the political, the politics weren't there to take care of their people, then that's when things started crumbling. And there were spikes in the food and spikes in housing and in healthcare. And the Assad regime really did not provide for its people. So it was a combination of a lot of things. And I think that's what we try and look at in our film, is how do all of these things, how do they intersect and compound each other? And I think, it's in media, it's easy to say that this really complicated situation was caused by one thing, but that's almost never true. And I think, there's a line that our media needs to draw between being digestible and being truthful. And so in this case, there's this rich history of climate and drought and migration that isn't talked about as much, but they intersected in a really awful way.